So we're going to focus primarily on our similes and metaphors for today. So I'm going to give you some examples. We're going to see if we can identify whether they're a simile or a metaphor and how we know which one they are. So the first sentence here, it is as dark here as the shadows of hell themselves. Now, is that a simile or is that a metaphor? Okay, you're right. It is a simile. How do you know that it's a simile? My simile there is as dark here as the shadows of hell themselves. How do you know that's a simile? Good. It's got one of our keywords in. Okay, we've got as. We know similes would have the words as or like in it. Okay, so that's when we're comparing them to being like something or as something. So it was dark here, as dark as the shadows of hell. Okay, so comparing the darkness to the shadows of hell. That's how dark it is. What about this one? The gunfire is relentless, like the sound of fireworks on bonfire night. Only these bangs fly inches past your skull and ring in your ears until you can stand it no longer. Is this a simile or a metaphor in this sentence, and can you find it? Good, we've got another simile, okay, like the sound of fireworks on bonfire night, and our key word that we're looking for there is like. So it's comparing the gunfire to being the sound of fireworks. On bonfire night, fireworks are constantly going off all night long because the neighbours have got them on, the opposite door neighbours have got them on, the local town's got their own firework display. There's no end to it, and obviously the idea of it being relentless, when something is relentless, it means it doesn't stop, it just continues and goes on and on and on and on. So you could have a tap that was dripping relentlessly. Drip, 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 drip. Same for fireworks, they're going off just constantly all night long. Now this sentence, I tried to comfort him. I held him gently as he wept like a child, frightened and confused. Can you find a simile or a metaphor in that sentence? Good, you're right, there's a simile in there, isn't there? Okay, as he wept like a child. Now it could have been there as, okay, but what has the as here been used as? Good, it's been used as a conjunction. I held him gently, he wept like a child. The as there is a conjunction to join those two sentences together, okay? So the key word we're looking for there is like. Now what about these ones? I watched him pass and the fire in his eyes slowly extinguished. Can we see a simile or a metaphor in there? Oh, you're right. It's a tricky one when it comes to metaphors. It says here the fire in his eyes. It's not like his eyes were like fire, but we're describing the life. When someone is alive, their eyes are sparkly, they're moving, they're big, they're small, they're scrunched, they're teary, they're happy. When someone's died, you almost you compare it to the liking of a fire. When a fire goes out, so when a fire goes out, if you're on a bonfire, okay, and the smoke disappears and the flames disappeared, it's dead. Your fire's died, hasn't it? And they sometimes say that when someone dies, it's like the light leaves them or the fire leaves them. Okay, you have a fire. The fire keeps you going. It keeps you burning, keeps you alive, keeps you warm. And it's the same as life. That beating of the heart is going. So they're comparing that his eyes aren't on fire or like fire, but that life inside him is like a fire because it's being extinguished. Okay, so the fire is dying, therefore he's dying. Now I've used the word here, extinguished. Okay, what does it mean if we extinguish something? Yeah, good, it means to put something out. So if you had a fire extinguisher, you've got something that's going to put that fire out safely. Okay, so I watched him pass and the fire in his eyes slowly extinguished. So that's almost symbolising the fact that he's dying. And that when it says I watched him pass, when someone passes, that's another way for saying they're dying. The war is hell and we are the condemned. Here, only to feed the battleground with our blood and bones. That doesn't sound particularly cheery. Can you see the metaphor in that sentence? Yeah, well done. This war is hell. Okay, we had the fire in his eyes, not like his eyes or as like fire in his eyes. It was the fire in his eyes. So we're talking about something that was there, that is what it is. Here, the war is hell. It's not the war is like hell. Okay, the war is hell. It's what it's being directly compared to. Now it says here, we are the condemned. Do you know what it means to be condemned? If someone is condemned or you condemn something, it's effectively you're in the wrong. It can be used in different contexts. But say here that this war is hell and we are the condemned, you're the bad people. Okay, you're the ones that are in the wrong. Okay, you're the ones that are being reprimanded, you're the ones being told off, you're the ones being punished for it. Now it says here, only to feed the battleground. Okay, now I've highlighted this in a green colour because this is similar to personification. Okay, we're not actually feeding the ground. with the blood and the bones. They're not physically getting blood, you know, digging a hole and pouring the blood in, you know, and digging little bones like tree trunks. The idea of feeding the battleground is all the dead bodies, they hit the ground, don't they? You covered the ground, you littered the ground. You effectively have given all of the blood and the bones to that battleground. So you're almost feeding it with the dead, but you're not physically feeding it like the ground's eating up the bodies. What about this one here? It is so lonely. I am on the precipice of falling apart, and it is only my thoughts of you that keep me from breaking. Poor, this is tragic. I picked a bad topic to be doing such tragic work on. Can you see the metaphor in that sentence? Now, have a real close look. Okay, and there's a word in there that we've looked at in our reading lessons, and it's a word we've looked at within our mountains topics as well. That's going to give you your clue. It's quite a difficult one to find. Okay, good. I am on the precipice of falling apart. Okay, so it's not I am about to fall apart like I'm on the edge. I am on the edge of falling apart. So precipice here. Okay, so we've got the I am. The precipice here. What did the precipice mean when we looked at it in our reading book when we were looking at Dragon Rider? Good, it means to be on the edge. Okay, remember Slatebeard and was it Slatebeard? No, it wasn't Slatebeard. It was Goldenbeard. Where does Slatebeard come from? Goldenbeard. And his slave had gone over and he was sat up on the precipice, wasn't he, listening into Sorrel and Fardrake's conversation with the mountain elves. And he was stood right on the precipice, which was right on the edge. So I am on the precipice of falling apart. I'm not falling apart like I'm on the edge, or I'm falling apart at the edge. It's saying I am on the precipice, and it's only my thoughts of you that keep me from breaking. Okay, now we don't physically break, do we? But that link there to the idea of breaking there is more on an emotional level. Okay, so I've written 3 different sentences here. Rather than me doing it my turn together your turn, because I think the metaphors can be quite difficult, I've written 3 different types of sentences here, and it's up to you to identify whether it's a metaphor or simile and what key skills I've used in the sentences. Okay, so here's my first sentence. He could hear the faint hoarse wheezing of his laboured breath, like air slowly being released from a deflating balloon. Miss Humphrey, I know what you're saying. I'm amazing. I know. Didn't make any spelling mistakes in this one either. Okay, I can see you all looking out for my spelling mistakes. So, you've got these sentences in front of you. Can you identify any skills that you've ever learnt in your writing that I've used in there? And can you identify whether there is a simile or a metaphor in this sentence? Off you go. Okay, so he could hear the faint. Now, I don't know if we've done this before, but you use them, most of you use these without even knowing it, and I think we've only covered it a couple of times this year. But we've got the word could here. Could is a modal verb, okay? And it's one of the spelling words that we looked at. I think it was just after October half term. We did the modal verbs. So you've got the would, could, should, might, must, will, perhaps, maybe. All those things that determine whether something will or wouldn't happen. So he could hear the faint, hoarse wheezing. So I've got an expanded noun phrase in here. Now here's a question for you. Let's see how well you paid attention in our reading lessons this week. A, what type of word is hoarse? And B, what's the definition? So first of all, tell me what type of word is it? You should know this from your spellings this week. Good, it's a homophone, okay? Because it's a homophone in the fact that the other word is hoarse. So there's 2 different spellings of it, but they sound the same but have different meanings. And what does it mean if something is hoarse? Yeah, good, like raspy, dry, almost rough, like someone's losing their voice. So you could hear the faint, hoarse wheezing. So wheezing is when someone's breathing and it's almost got like a high-pitched squeal with it, and that usually suggests that they can't breathe very well. So you've got the wheezing of his laboured breath, like air slowly being released from a deflating balloon. Okay, now I've got an adverb in there, okay, so I've added that additional word in there, but I know it's a simile because I've got the word like. Now when something is laboured, labour is work, okay, so when someone gets paid labour, okay, they get paid for the work that they do, okay, so wheezing of his laboured breath, that means that his breathing is hard work for him, he's struggling to breathe, but the key word in there was our like, okay. So here's another sentence for you. A solitary tear trickled down his ebony cold cheek and kissed the unforgiving ground beneath him. Oh, I know, it's amazing. Right, can you identify the different skills I've used in this sentence? And can you tell me, is there a simile or a metaphor in there? Pause the video, have a go. Okay, so a solitary tear trickled. Okay, got my alliteration in there. Okay, that's one of my other figurative language devices. Solitary means one. You live in solitary, you live on your own. Okay, solitary confinement, you live just one of you. Okay, down his ebony cold cheek. So I've got an expanded noun phrase in there. Does anybody know what ebony is? Oh, okay, so ebony is white. Okay, so you could have. Oh no, it's not. Beg your pardon. Down his ebony cold cheek. I meant ivory. Oh, I've made a mistake on there. Ebony is the opposite of that. It'd be black, so it would be ivory. But do you know what? I'm going to go with ebony anyway because he's going to be completely caked and covered in mud. Okay, he's in a battlefield right now, so I'm going to stick with ebony. But had it been ivory, that was where I was more going with the ivory cheek on the fact that he's dying, so all the colour had gone from his face. So even I've just made a mistake there, but hey, I corrected myself, which is the important thing. So you've got his ebony cold cheek and kissed the unforgiving ground. Do you think tears can kiss the ground? They don't have lips, do they? No. Okay, so what skill is it? Brandon, you better be shouting this out. Good, well done. Personification. Okay, we've given that tear a human characteristic. Now, you might have seen it. We have a metaphor here. It's the unforgiving ground. It's not the ground was forgiving, okay, and using it as a verb. We've said it is the unforgiving ground beneath him, okay, so we've got our metaphor in there. And the last one here, beating like a broken drum, his heart moaned a melancholy tune like a farewell song into the afterlife. Pause the video and identify the skills and tell me, is there a simile or a metaphor? Off you go. Okay, well, it's right there at the beginning of the sentence, okay? Beating like a broken drum, okay? And we can tell that it's a simile because we've got the word like. Now here, we've got the word beating with an ing. What type of opener have I used? Good, I've used a verb opener there as well, hence my comma. His heart moaned a melancholy tune. Okay, hearts can't moan. Okay, they don't have voice boxes. Okay, they can't make those kind of sounds. So I've compared that to the way a human might moan. And it says a melancholy tune. Okay, now we've looked at the word melancholy in reading. What does it mean? Good, always sad, depressing, unhappy, not pleasant. Okay, so obviously it's going to be a melancholy tune because he's dying. Okay, he's not going to be playing an upbeat, hip hop song because that doesn't work. And then here we've got another simile, playing a melancholy tune like a farewell song into the afterlife. So that idea of like playing that song is leading him off to the fact that he's then going to die effectively. So well done if you managed to identify the key skills in there. So your task that you're going to do now is you're going to need to write as many metaphors and similes as you can about the death of the soldier. So this can be up from when he's behind the wall and he rounds it and he gets shot. This could be the aftermath, so you could link it back to the paragraph you wrote yesterday. It could even be about the other man's reaction about his friend being shot. But what I want is a minimum of 5 similes and 3 metaphors. Okay, so altogether you have a minimum of 8 different sentences. So pause the video and have a go, and then I've got a quick task we're going to go through at the end. So let's consider what is the difference between literal and figurative meaning. Okay, and this very much goes back to the idea of our idioms. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Okay, we've got literal language over here. There was a lot of snow in the quiet forest. Well, how do we give that more figuratively meaning here? So we're creating that image in someone's head. A blanket of white covered the sleeping forest. We know that snow is white. We know when the snow comes down, it completely covers everything. What covers us when we're at night time? A duvet or a blanket, okay? She is a fast runner. Well, let's compare her to something. She ran like a bullet. You wouldn't say she ran like a snail, because let's be honest, snails don't go very fast. Okay, so it's got to be an appropriate simile for her to be fast, because she'd run as fast as a cheetah. So we could use the as in there as well. Now this one's an interesting one. Grandma's garden is full of beautiful flowers. Now when you describe someone as being a gardener or like being outside in the wildlife and doing digging and gardening, we say they have what's called a green thumb. Now it's not physically that they have a green thumb, but the idea of gardening, you link it to sort of the grass and the trees and the leaves, which are green. And the idea of it being the thumb is that you're always digging and you're troweling away into the soil, and potentially that's that link between your fingers being green. So if you say that someone's got green fingers or green thumbs, that's another way of saying to someone that they like to be in the garden, okay, and they like to do lots of the gardening things. So in the context of what we've looked at today, why is it important to use it in language and in narrative? Well, we can't physically display a story using lots of little pictures, so we have to use those skills to give that image in the reader's mind, like the lightning and the veins as well, okay? So well done for having a go at those sentences. Keep those to hand because we're going to have a go at using some of those in our writing for tomorrow. All right, well done, you 5.